Newport, the arsehole of Wales, a city built on pirate gold, famous for a failed working class rebellion and a nightclub where the ladies' toilets would flood the dance floor nightly, a city famous for bridges, 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 empty shops and a disproportionate number of people on benefits. However, if one ends up here and wades through the empty shops and dirty needles, one will find lurking in our boozy corners some of the most interesting people in the world. Some of these people have lived here their whole lives. Some have merely passed through. This podcast will offer them and their stories to you. As the 44th President of the United States, Barack Obama, once said, "It takes a brave man to walk around Newport in flip-flops." I am that man. I am Matthew Spencer, and this is the Portside Podcast.
Episode 1, Spy Cops.
Of Nintendo.
Man, I think that stuff's fascinating. I think that's really going to like...
Are we recording?
Yeah. So like the... You know, like in terms of... Like people are like obsessed with certain fucking like products which have lasted time. You know, some more so than others. And like just keeping those going, being able to do that stuff. I think like that's going to change how people, you know, interact with... Yeah, it's definitely a good thing. Definitely a good thing. Yeah. You know, I mean, like, we've lost the thing of, like, patching clothes a long time ago. People don't really do that, you know? I mean, that doesn't really exist anymore.
You don't need to, because you've got children in Bangladesh that'll make it for half the price that it would cost your nana to patch your clothes. Totally. Why not? Get the children to do it.
Yeah,
definitely.
Totally. But, like, I mean, like, it's that's capitalism, man. It'll sell you cheaper. Yeah, totally.
Well done. Good, you know. Why get your nana to do it when you can get a child from Bangladesh to do it? That's what I say. Hello, welcome to the Portside Podcast. Sat on the faux leather sofa with me today is Tom Fowler.
All right,
Tom is a local activist, self-proclaimed anarchist thinker.
Oh, I've never called myself a thinker.
No? So would you consider yourself to be an anarchist? So you live by whatever being an anarchist is?
Well, I mean, like, I would say, like, there's the idea, like, the concept of anarchism, like, as a political ideology. I was drawn to it when I was, like, kind of looking at, like was really into politics as a young person, and like.
Are you not a young person now, Tom?
Probably not. But I mean, like, you know, as a teenager, I guess, and like, it certainly made the most sense to me. As a form of libertarian socialism. You know, I was drawn to left-wing politics. I think, you know, anarchism is just another form of socialism, which, I mean, it just is. You know, I mean, like, as an ideology, I don't think, like, I don't have an anarchist lifestyle. I wouldn't say particularly. I think it does inform how I interact with people. It definitely has an effect in terms of what my ethics are, what my morals are, what I think is right and wrong. But really, being an anarchist is no different than being like a social democrat. I mean, I'm an anarchist in the same way that some people believe in, you know, certain sorts of political solutions. You know, they're Christian Democrats. They're like social conservatives. They're, you know, I mean, I'm an anarchist in that sense. Really, I would define my politics as social ecology, which was developed by a guy called Murray Bookchin.
How would you define social ecology in simple terms? Because you've got to remember, Tom, I'm not very smart, so everything needs to be explained quite clearly.
Okay, so like social ecology is just a particular like nuanced form of libertarian socialism. So I'd rather talk about what libertarian socialism is.
Okay, let's go for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that does what it says on the tin. I think you know what that means. You know, that means about not sacrificing personal freedom for
the love of the state.
For freedom without socialism is barbarism, and like socialism without freedom is gross inequality.
Did someone really profound say that before?
Yeah. I mean, lots of people have said it in very different ways.
That's moved me.
There's a slightly more articulate version done by Bakunin, but you know, there's
Bakunin.
Yeah. Top boy.
He was a cousin to the Tsar. Is that right?
His personal history-wise, no, I don't think he was cousin to the Tsar. I mean, like Kropotkin. I mean, if you want to get in terms of like, oh gosh, these
'Cause they were
early
aristocrats,
things was,
weren't they?
they certainly weren't from, they weren't from your working fingers.
They weren't like us.
They weren't like us. I mean, like, if through history we just like kind of follow the writings of like and thinkings of like ordinary working class people, that's not a bad test of things. But like,
No.
we probably lose a fair bit. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I'm all for You can't trust the bourgeois swine, comrade. You can't fucking do it. Like,
you can't.
I mean, you can't really do it. They're all just tourists. But like, some of them, I've always been interested in middle class people. Like, they read a lot and like they do a lot of things I was interested in.
Yeah, they live in like big flats in the middle of cities.
Yeah. Hey,
Bastards.
big flats, little cities. Yeah.
Bastards, loads of space.
Yeah.
Minimal fuckers.
Yeah, but they've got opinions they're interested in like telling you about and stuff.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
yeah.
Like, middle class people are interesting.
They are.
I've always been
interesting.
interested in middle class people.
That's,
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And like lots of middle class and like some and posh people. Some
They're
posh
brilliant.
people are appallingly boring. Like and like no fun to be in the pub with, or you just want to assault them like too much. But
some posh people are brilliant.
interesting,
Yeah.
like interesting
Yeah.
characters. Like
Because they've got loads of money, they can afford to be interesting.
Yeah.
So,
This is it.
Tom,
Yeah.
what have you been doing this week?
What have I been doing this week?
Yeah.
This and that, like, man. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
What have you been up to?
In London on Wednesday, went to the Royal Court of Justice.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it was a hearing for. It was a case management hearing for the Investigative Powers Tribunal.
Right.
The Investigative Powers Tribunal is a secret court. So, like, if you ever want to take anything to Europe,
Yeah.
say you got a grievance and it's been going on a while. Mm-hmm. So, like, I always take it to Europe because, like, we've exhausted civil things. You've run out of things to do, basically, which are like realistic and sensible. You've pushed for a criminal investigation to happen. It hasn't happened. You've brought a civil claim that's been exhausted.
Right.
It could have been settled, but
Yeah.
and you want to take it to the European Court. You can't until you've done an IPT.
Right. Okay.
Investigative Powers Tribunal. It's a secret court. There's 3 judges. You don't get to go to the hearings. You don't get to see any evidence. There's no disclosure process. Your lawyer isn't there. You get assigned a lawyer, which they appoint.
Right.
And they meet together, discuss it, and they give you they call it
So
a
what,
one-line.
do they choose both lawyers?
They choose both. No,
They choose
no,
both.
they choose the one. They choose your lawyer.
Right.
And then the people, it's only against public authorities of any description. So it could be like a local council, it could be to a police force, it could be any aspect of the state, essentially. No, they appoint their own.
Yeah.
And because they're a state actor. And then the court appoints yours.
So the people that you're going against appoints a lawyer for you.
Yes, I would say so, because the state is one entity. They would say, no, we're different, independent branch from, we are not both, Lambeth Council and the Metropolitan Police and Middlesbrough, Health Board, or the Welsh Assembly, or any of these different state institutions which can have cases brought against them.
Because that sounds unfair, doesn't it?
I would say, it's a rigged game.
Yeah.
It's a completely rigged game. It would be childish to think that, like, this is a particularly unique, unfairness.
Yeah.
Because I think at the end of the day, the entire system is rigged. Mm-hmm. And it'd be very easy to be like, oh, this is appalling. This is carbuncle on British justice. That there's this completely secret court which,
And then we've got a queen.
Right, exactly. For fuck's sake. Come on, get real. You know what I mean? This is not like.
Kind of better accept it, haven't we? Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So to bring a case there, is the thing you do before you go to Europe, essentially, because like the European Court of Justice, you've kind of got like a crack of the whip, and there's limits to it. I don't think it's any sort of panacea, but once you've kind of run out of like civil claims in the UK, which are very limited, they're just about portioning cash. Nothing else really to like kind of get out of it. You can get apologies out of it, but that's you kind of using the process. You've got a grievance to the state, you want to kind of go to Europe, so you have to do the IPT first. Mm-hmm. So a comrade of mine, somebody I've been involved with campaigns over the years, Kate Wilson, who was one of the many women who was targeted by undercover police.
Was that the lady that I saw on Good Morning Britain?
Yes, she was. She was on Good Morning Britain.
The blonde lady?
Blonde lady, yeah. Yeah, she was targeted by a undercover police officer called Mark Kennedy. He was a officer of the Special Demonstration Squad, National Public Intelligence Order Unit. Sorry, the NPORU.
Right.
Those were the two units, the undercover police units.
And he was of
the NPORU, the second one, the
latter.
The latter. There was two different types. She was one of many women who undercover officers used as a form of infiltration and cover into political groups. She's been bringing this case. She was one of a group of 8 women who took an action against the Metropolitan Police and the Association of Chief Police Officers. They had an apology and had a settlement from the civil process, but she was able to use a certain part of the argument for attempt to bring a case to the IPT as a step to going to Europe. The police, having apologised, having claimed that, having used essentially a bad apple argument about the behaviour of that officer, Mark Kennedy, but also about other officers, including Bob Lambert, who had children with a child with another officer.
That's bad.
Yeah, Jim Boyle. I mean, there was a number of children fathered by a number of officers. It's a horrifically
not doing much
story.
Policing by there, were they? By the sounds of things.
I mean, I think we need to understand. We need to see in context what the police are up to when it comes to the policing of protest movements, and so much of the activity that's they're involved in terms of stopping people from doing direct action, closing down radical groups, is quite overt, and we see it happening. We see the large demonstrations, the over policing, the excessive security. You remember when NATO came to Newport?
I do, yeah.
What Cardiff was like during.
It was crazy. There was more police when NATO come to Newport. There was more police officers in Newport than there was people that actually live in Newport, and they all had special caps made. Do you remember?
I remember the caps. Yeah.
They did. It was terrifying, actually.
I mean, you look at what the protests that were organised against that. I mean, they were pretty vanilla. They're pretty pedestrian. I mean, quite literally pedestrian kind of protests. Pretty insulted. I've
met a few of you guys over the years.
Right.
I mean, I know you personally. And I've met a couple of your associates and your comrades or whatever. And to be honest, they're not. They're normally peaceful. Well, in fact, I don't think I've met one that's not. They're not the type of people that are out sort of starting fights and throwing Molotov cocktails. They're normally pretty peaceful people that have just got, that are prepared to sort of protest against things. I would call them placard wavers, as opposed to, someone that's going to cause real damage.
I mean, I'm not going to get into the rights and wrongs of property destruction, but I certainly would never condemn anybody who took direct action of that type. I don't feel. I've always believed in diversity of tactics. I don't think when we're sort of talking about acceptable and unacceptable protester, the dichotomy that was kind of been brought in, from the state about what is acceptable and unacceptable behaviour when you're on a demonstration, and what is unacceptable and acceptable behaviour when you're outside the property of a company or institution that is responsible for some pretty heinous crimes, that has gone unpunished for those crimes. I am not about to do anything other than accept that sort of behaviour as totally acceptable. I don't think
talking sort of like class war in the early days, because you give me that brilliant book. Bash the Rich.
Bash the Rich. Ian Bone, the Ian Bone book. I used to remember a class war back in the day.
Because they used to steal bricks, didn't they? When that was their thing. I remember they were saying that they got cornered or something in London, some protests, and there was a truck load of bricks just turned up. It was like magic, so they just sort of took the bricks. There's loads of crazy stories. I mean, particularly from the 80s when I was but a child, and obviously not at any of these sort of events, but there's lots of crazy stories. In terms of what the police deem a threat. When we look at what the SDS and the NPORU
Those units specifically, what have been dubbed the spy cops units.
Yeah.
Hashtag spy cops. If you're interested in any of this, like search for that on any social media platform, you'll find anything.
Hashtag spy cops. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like what those two units were sort of focused on was anything really, like you say, placard waving, any public order situation. And that meant the likes of me, politically, I was probably from, you know, I'm an anarchist, you know, I'm from probably the most extreme end of that, what you get. And, you know, I mean, I think like the worst you get is pushing and shoving, maybe a bit of throwing things. You know what I mean?
You guys are always quite sort of peaceful and...
yeah, I mean, like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say I'm a peaceful person generally. I don't, you know, I don't advocate any form of activity that is like not.
It doesn't seem like it warrants to have. This is just my sort of
Sure.
Yeah. You know,
yeah.
I mean, I've never sort of been involved with you guys other than speaking with you as a friend.
Yeah. I mean, like, I would say, like, I don't think there's this sort of thing of like, what a waste of time. What a waste of time. But
And money.
And money, yeah, absolutely. I mean, but I think when you
My
consider,
money.
Okay, yeah, sure, your money. But like Spence, let's be real. Okay, so each undercover officer, they reckon about $500,000 a year cost to deploy them. Yeah, and you had like 10 officers at a time. Yeah, and then you had like the handlers and shit. So you know, you're talking, you know, tens of millions to run this unit.
And you've got all the identification, changing their ID.
Absolute peanuts when you look at what they did for something like NATO. Look what they did for something like the Gymnic, even. Which is a very small something, which was in Newport 2005. I don't remember that one.
The Gymnic, no,
just an EU summit, like a minor EU summit.
Okay.
I mean, overt policing. They're already spending huge quantities of cash. They're already like using an elephant gun to crack a nut. They've just jailed 3 guys and put somebody, a 4th guy, and under. You know, basically, if he does anything, if he farts in the wrong direction, he's going to get locked up for 2 years for sitting on top of trucks.
Right.
There's a blockade outside of a fracking site, and when the trucks came in, they climbed on board and sat on top.
Right. Okay.
And they stayed there for a number of days. The drivers, left their trucks. The trucks were just left there. It meant the whole site couldn't operate, essentially, and it meant that the fracking that was happening, Preston New Road, couldn't continue. Free the Frack 4, hashtag free the frack 4, number 4.
Free the Frack 4.
Yeah, it's absolutely like ridiculous that people are getting locked up for. Nobody's got hurt. There's no there's been a financial damage.
Someone was hurt, Tom.
Who was hurt, man?
The pockets.
The pockets. Yeah. That's not someone. But I mean, this is something which it's the obscenity of how policing and how the justice system is happening in this country is incredibly overt. Like the secretive stuff that's happened is bad, but like the fact that it happens is only just like it's the icing on the cake. It's the cherry on the top of the policing situation, which everybody should be incensed about before we got these new revelations, before we got the scandals. Just what they're openly talking about and they're openly doing. Look at Stansted 15. These are the 15 people on trial for terrorism charges for stopping a plane from taking off, which was deporting people to, possible torture and death. This is a humanitarian intervention which is being cast as terrorism.
Who are the people on the plane though? Do we know who they were? Were they? I mean, I'm just
Yeah, let's find out they are, man. Let's fucking they might be lying about their age as well. Knock their teeth out. Knock their teeth out. If you knock their teeth out, you can test their age and everything.
But were they terror suspects? The people that were on the plane?
What the fuck were they fucking terror suspects? What the fuck are you on about?
I'm trying to get some perspective here.
How's that perspective?
Well, I'm just saying. Were they? Al Qaeda or ISIS?
Yeah, they were.
IRIS,
I heard they were fucking, camera.
Deport camera.
Yeah,
sorry,
camera.
I support the deportation of camera. And the Real Ale crew.
Yeah,
bastards.
Stansted 15. If you follow you should put it like a whole bunch of links
Barry,
to the things we talk about.
But we will, Barry. What are they called? The Stansted
15.
Stansted 15. I just saw that he had the what was the 4 called?
I should have the Frac 3-4.
The Frac 3-4.
Free the Frac 4.
Free the Frac 4. I saw that he'd put them up.
See, these are the sort of things you should have prepped for this show.
Yeah, well, you know,
I should probably prep.
We're recording it. We can prep after.
We'll prep afterwards. So it's the first time we've done one of these.
Yeah,
first one. Well, I'm honoured to be the first guest.
Can't tell we're like sat on the sofa.
Yeah,
with one mic between us.
That's
Fuck you, Joe Rogan.
Is there like, I think there's a rule of podcasts. You have to like name him. You have to name him in like you have to say his name.
Joe Rogan.
If you say it a third time, does it like something happen?
I don't know. Joe Rogan.
Hold it. Oh, there.
Like Candyman.
We could have waited the rest of the program for you to do
Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Like Candyman. If you say his name 3 times in the mirror, he comes and kills you.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if you say Joe Rogan 3 times on a podcast, then he'll turn up. I don't know what I'd say to him anyway. He'd probably be like, "Fuck you, man." Even though I do quite enjoy it. Sorry, Tom. Here we are. We've got Essex Live up on the screen at the moment. So these guys are from Essex.
No.
Edward Thacker? No.
What are you reading, man?
Terrorism trial. Protesters gathered outside the courtroom. So while he's looking for that, they were stopping a plane with people that were being deported. What were these people being deported for?
Well, for failed asylum status.
Right. Okay. So there's no other reason. There was no sort of. They weren't like MI6 deporting them because they were.
No, man. No. That's not.
They were plotting to fucking.
No. Huge numbers of people are deported from the UK every year for having incorrect immigration status.
Right. Okay.
That's not like. It's not like some sort of they've done some amazingly bad crime. It's just that they haven't got the correct immigration status.
Right.
That means they came as a
student.
These guys
were just
a mixture of people. I mean, like I don't know the specifics about the.
Were there any
people.
Australians on there?
I doubt very much Australians because generally what the Border Immigration Agency do is they judge the severity of the crime based on the GDP of the country of origin.
Right. Okay.
So if you're from a poor country, it's a greater crime than you're from a rich country. So if somebody overstays from the United States or Australia or France, well, obviously the EU doesn't count, but any sort of non-EU state where we don't have a free movement agreement with.
The EU doesn't count at the moment.
At the moment, yeah, that will change. I guess that will change. That will many things. Yeah, that will change.
Yeah, I feel sorry for all those Latvians.
I mean, I think, God, do you want to get on that? Like, it's fucking horrific. It's fucking horrific. The human impact is appalling. Absolutely appalling. Yeah.
So going back to spy cops then.
All right, yeah, how do we get onto that? Oh yeah, so I mean like basically, there is a huge outrage. There's a huge like cost outrage about what, but like in terms the cost is a drop in the ocean. In terms of what the level of money that we put into political policing in this country, it is horrific. Secret political policing is a particularly appalling thing, but political policing is already huge, and there should be mass outrage about it. The fact there isn't is I find deeply disturbing.
I think it's because like your average person doesn't know that it happens. I mean, until obviously I've followed the spy cops thing.
Sure, but like I said, that's a secret thing. I mean, there's very overt. Yeah. I mean, you know that it happens because you see it. Like when these big events happen, you see all those cops. When
it's in your face, then.
It's in your face. I mean, like these things are happening. These cases. That's 2 cases this week. That's 2 cases this week. I mean, like this isn't anything. I mean, like.
The case 2 cases of this.
The Frac 3-4 and the Stand to 15.
So that's news this week.
Both those things are the news this week.
Right. Okay.
This isn't like they're not like some massive example.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we are living. This country has a very very repressive policing approach to radical politics, direct action. It is clamped down upon in a multitude of ways, the majority of which are very overt.
That's because they're scared. It's because they think that people might have some power.
I mean, it's been very telling how quickly. I mean, look at things like Corbynism, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Corbynism, for me, I mean, it's been really interesting to see happen.
It sounds like an infection, doesn't it?
It does sound like an infection, yeah.
So I've got a bad case of Corbynism. I've scratched everything red.
You've got a whole generation of people who, like, I think in previous years would have, like, kind of gone into, like, direct action and, like, radical politics. And instead they've gone into, like, a very sort of old-fashioned way of doing politics. And, like, they've taken it by storm.
Mm.
They're really they're making moves in that sphere. I mean, it's not my politics,
Stormzy.
yeah, Stormzy, man.
Fuck you, Tories. Corbyn's got Stormzy. Yeah, how many rappers of the imagine a Tory rapper.
Tory rappers, man. Tory hip hop. That's not a thing.
I think that's going to be a thing after this podcast. Someone's going to listen to it and go, do you know what?
Do you know, ironic
That's
hip hop.
a really good idea.
Ironic hip hop can go fuck itself, I reckon. Like, 'cause you do get ironic. There's a lot of like.
I agree.
I mean, like, some of it's great. Like Clayton Blizzard, brilliant.
Never heard of
He's great, man. He's great. It's like sort of like kind of West Country sort of folky guy.
What is it? Young Tory friends. Barry's found some Tory hip hop.
Tory hip hop.
Shut up. Can we play it?
We'll lose something. Like, you're not mute. Barry's trying to pretend that he's not in the room with us.
Oh yeah.
I'm here.
You're here. Go on. Speak.
Come on, we got to hear it.
Talk about shit.
No, this to think about.
Oh yeah. You're fucked.
Copyright. Let's worry about it. Let's worry about it afterwards.
It's probably a fair use.
Which is
there
a very good.
It's like
It's a very
15
good
seconds or
philosophy.
something.
Seconds of young.
Come on, Ed, young Tory.
What have we got? Open space.
Come on, Ed, that sounds.
No, but is he actually a Tory or his name is
No,
Tory?
his name's Young Tory.
Oh, no, that's not. Okay, so this does not count. This is just a guy who's got.
Turn it up on the amp.
He's talking. He's not.
Oh, he's not even rapping.
No, this doesn't count.
No, it doesn't count. It's got to be a real.
It's like
it can't
a genuine like advocate.
It can't be a guy because
like,
that could mean his name's
politics.
like Chris Story or something. I don't know.
No, Tory is a genuine name.
Yeah,
Genuine
Tory.
name. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
like.
Would you name your son Tory?
No, if I had a son, I'd call him Dave or Gary.
Gary. I like Gary.
Not Gareth or David.
Gary or Dave. Yeah, don't give him the full name.
Fuck that.
Fuck him.
If it was a girl, it'd be like Jane. Mary.
Jay. Maybe.
Jay.
May. Don't give him the full name. They don't deserve it.
No,
Tom.
no, like you can't like hold. I mean, like you
Barry's found. Are there any conservative rappers? And what's this site? Cora. That sounds like vegetarian meat substitute.
Corn, man.
Yeah, Cora. That's their side. That's their side thing.
I remember many moons ago, some noted local punk characters in Newport were going to do a piss steak of corn.
Yeah.
Called Corn. Where they would do.
I wonder who they were.
Well, I don't want to name the people who don't want to.
You
be
can name
named.
the band though, surely.
Well, it was members of. I won't say which members of. But it was at the time. It was members of In the Shit and Rectify.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting right of centre points here that apparently are shared by a lot of rappers.
Pro-life, homophobic, less government.
Okay, so they ought.
Fucking
What
hell.
I'm saying is they ought to be. So I think like.
That's a bit of a generalisation,
okay, so
isn't
if
it?
we're not talking about the whole English-speaking planet, we're talking about the English-speaking planet. I'm sure we're going to come across a bunch of like Republican, American, like kind of people who do hip hop. I'm sure there's plenty of them that exist.
Kanye loves Trump.
Yeah,
He
right.
does,
Kanye,
yeah.
man, Kanye.
I remember
man,
Immortal
Jesus.
Technique, who's
Yeah.
a real socially conscious rapper, was
Interesting
on.
character.
What's the crazy American guy called?
Oh, Infowars.
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
He was on there talking
Oy
about
vey,
guns.
bro.
Yeah, he was on there talking about guns with Alex
Yeah,
Jones.
man, people armed.
'Cause they love guns.
People armed. Yeah.
They love guns, but from completely different ends of the scale.
Yeah, but that's just. It's all about sales then. Well, can I just say the main problem I've got with Immortal Technique is that he has got no work ethic at all, man. How many years since the Middle Passage? That's like what, 8 years? More than that. Like genuine lack of work ethic.
Kieran knows about that.
You know what I mean? Totally. I mean, I think like this is Kieran, man. Like you're a hip hop head.
Yeah, he loves it.
Yeah.
He
So
does.
like okay.
He loves it, even though he's white and ginger.
There's a lot of it about, man. If it wasn't for the white ginger people, there wouldn't be all that money in hip hop, man.
That's true.
You know,
You are, mate. Honestly.
Yeah.
Jay-Z should fly you over to Las Vegas, man.
Yeah.
And get you high on peyote.
Do you buy like
Some
do you buy all
showgirls.
the extra things that you can buy as a hip hop fan? Are you one of those people?
What extra things?
Well, you know, there's
Yeah, he's
you can
what?
buy
There's
like
more stuff that I've already got.
You know, you can get like
Convoysier.
well, you can get Woo wear like slippers. Oh, okay. You can get
Hang on
like,
a minute. Whoa. You can buy Wu-Tang slippers.
Yeah, come on, Woo wear, man.
Can you,
It's like
Barry,
oh.
can you Google Wu-Tang slippers,
Oh
please?
man, yeah, like.
And you Amazon
Oh yeah,
UK.
yeah, totally. I mean, you know, the tie-ins have been going for a long time. Yeah, but I mean, you know, like you get Snoop Dogg everything, man, from a vape pen to a fucking.
Oh my days.
Yeah,
They've
there's
got-
everything.
There's slippers. I can see them.
Yeah, of course there are.
I've got that Wu-Tang
But you're
t-shirt.
basically like hip hop is, you know.
Is that a Wu-Tang jock strap?
There's some boxer shorts, certainly.
Compression shorts.
50,
Sorry, my phone's
50
going.
squids.
Yeah, hip hop's a weird one.
He blogs a lot of those things, man. And like,
look at that. How much for the slippers did you say?
They're socks.
Ah, no, they're stance socks.
Yeah, lack of work ethic. It's the worst thing an MC can display, man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, for me, my favourite form of hip-hop is battle rap.
Okay.
I love that shit, man. Love that shit. Yeah. Oh man, fucking let's
you
talk
did
about
your folk battle thing, didn't you?
I once organised.
I remember that.
Folk punk clash. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. I still think it's a thing I would like.
Why
to
didn't that catch on?
Why didn't it catch on? So I did have a second battle lined up.
Right. Okay. So you only got one battle in.
Well, only one battle. It's online. Folk punk clashes. At Folk Punk Clashes on every platform. You can see the one battle that we ever hosted, plus a trailer and like a bunch of interviews and the judgment and a breakdown and like some performances by the people who did it on the YouTube channel, which never got enough followers to actually get Folk Punk Clashes as the fucking act. You know, one of the great sort of problems of doing like trying to get something off the ground with anything. We were talking about this earlier. Spencer's Instagram account doesn't even, he can't even like post on it yet because he hasn't registered his phone number because he doesn't trust them.
That's YouTube. You can't put YouTube on it. Oh, can't we? It's because it's for this podcast. Right. And I thought, well, I'm not going to like post a YouTube video unless I've recorded something.
I'm not.
So literally, we're recording something now.
Do you know what? I'm not doing.
I will put a phone number on there. I'll probably put like, I don't know, like my Auntie Mavis or something.
On Wednesday,
I'll use her number. She won't.
You said about that woman you saw on TV on Wednesday morning.
Yes, I did.
So I hung out with her. Kate Wilson. Yeah.
Kate Wilson.
So I hung out with her that day, and like she'd had all the ITV makeup done.
Right. Okay.
And then we had a demo outside court before going into the hearing, and she had all the makeup on, and like in all the photos, she looked great, but like she looks fantastic. We all look really pale next to her. Everybody looks really pale next to her because like when you've done it properly for the cameras, it makes all the difference.
Did she look like Trump?
No, I mean I wouldn't say she looked made up. She looked properly made up, and like
he's like full on.
She won't mind me saying I wouldn't say she's ever been a particularly made up person. That's not been part of her sort of.
Well, it's the anarchist girl thing, isn't it? It's like stripped bare, you know. Saying that though, from that book you I bought it off you.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah, it was Bash the Rich book. Yeah.
That book, it was saying that a lot of the money that funded the class war movement back in the 80s was from the girls from Ladbroke Grove.
Yes,
with the working girls,
sex workers. Yeah. I mean, like certainly there is.
They funded a lot of it, which I thought was.
I mean, I would say
fantastic.
Like politically minded sex workers. I mean, have been like a core part of political radicalism in the UK. I mean, the English Collective of Prostitutes.
That was the most for me. That was apart from all the stuff about because he lived in Swansea, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Have a look at Ian Bone. Google Ian Bone and have a look at if he comes up.
I mean, interesting. I mean, like, So he was on the news last week, wasn't he?
Was he?
Yeah, for abusing Jacob Rees-Mogg's children.
Oh, thank God. Hang on a minute, right? Let's say This is what I was going to say. You said abusing. I thought, don't say children.
Oh no, sorry.
And then you said children.
Yeah. Sorry. No, when I say abuse, it was verbal abuse. There was no sexual abuse. It was purely verbal abuse. And to be honest, I don't think it was verbal abuse. I mean, essentially, I mean, like, get the clip up. You can play this. And there'll be no. So you want Ian Bone, Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Fucking hell, Barry's head nearly exploded when you said he was in the news. We've just been talking about how great his book was.
Ian Bone.
As in bone.
Yeah, as in give
them bones.
Not kids. No, so Ian then put Jacob Rees-Mogg in as well, and you'll find the clip. So basically, he was protesting Jacob Rees-Mogg, which I think is a perfectly reasonable thing anybody should do.
Yeah, he's a turd.
And Jacob Rees-Mogg brought his children out and said, "Look, come and look at the protesters, children." In the attempt to sort of shame them. I think
Jacob Rees-Mogg. Turn it up on the amp.
Okay, so before you play it, let me just give some context. Just to give some context about this.
Hang on, he's giving us context.
That Jacob Rees-Mogg has been quite effective at bringing out the farce out of anybody protesting him.
Yeah.
When people have tried to shut down meetings that he's been at, he's kind of gone over and got in it really close to them and been terribly polite and let's talk about this. I mean, you're wearing a mask. I don't mind. Let's have a talk about this. So some people protest him outside his house and I forget what particular thing in the news cycle, what outrageous thing he'd done, because there's so many to choose from. But I think he'd done something particularly obnoxious that particular day.
He's an absolute twat.
And that Ian Bone, as a anarcho activist, just one of those people who very much believes in like. I think it's really I could go off topic here, but you just go for it. You don't like you don't write a strongly worded letter. You go and find the person and go, "Oi, that was fucking out of order. What the fuck do you think you're saying?"
He's one of those guys.
One of those guys. So he went and did that.
He's a straight up dude.
Not alone. I mean, he is a member of a group, Class War, which have been going since the early '80s. They had a newspaper.
Are they
in the
still
80s.
functional?
They are a very fluid sort of group. There are local groups all over the country that come and go. Newport Class War. Remember the days. If anybody from Newport Class War back in the day is listening, then fucking hi, Steve.
We're not supposed to name people.
Anyway, literally, it would only take like 2 people.
Apart from Steve.
Yeah,
Steve, Newport Class War.
Yeah. It was never. It's always been a very, very fluid group with no real kind of like membership list or anything like that, but Bone set it up when he was living in Swansea. It was a newspaper. There were huge periods of time where there was no activity. Kind of comes and goes.
I can remember in the late '80s. This is why I was so interested in that book. Because I can remember actually there was a Class War book which was sold in is it Black? Was it called Blackwell's? It used to be in the Hayes in Cardiff.
The Decade of Disorder. There was 2. There's Decade of Disorder and
these fantastic collages in there. And you had
like coffee table book almost.
Images that would absolutely. My nan, God rest her soul, if she saw them, it probably would have killed her back then.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like
it was lots of Queen with like a meat cleaver in her head. And stuff like that.
Thatcher with the cleaver in there, but also lots of like. I think quite empowering kind of like talking about like kind of just like everyday life resistance.
Yeah.
I mean, like I think like they did a great deal to like bridge that sort of. Because I mean, like when we talk about like, look, I tell you what, we're getting terribly off topic. Let's play the.
Turn it up. It don't matter.
Just play it.
There's no one here in this forest. that we're in.
Simple question. You won't answer the question, will you? Your dad won't answer the question. Your daddy is a totally horrible person. Lots of people don't like your daddy, you know that. No, he probably not told you about that. Lots of people hate him. Because he won't pay much, he pays his... the nanny who looks after him, daddy doesn't pay her very much. Daddy says the minimum wage doesn't count for anything. Or the London living wage. Daddy doesn't pay the living wage. So poor nanny crook who looks after him, watch him, bottom, she doesn't get enough money every week. But daddy doesn't care.
She's laughing.
Latin eating, orientated top, which he does pretty well.
Yeah, so basically
that's not abuse.
Yeah, it's not abuse.
It's not, is it? That's trying to make them think.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a fact. I mean, like, so the Nanny Crook, who is the family nanny, raised Jacob Rees-Mogg himself.
She's quite fit.
No, that's not her.
Oh, that wasn't her.
No, that wasn't her. But so Jacob himself was raised by her. She's an older woman, much older woman.
Right. Okay.
She did everything from wiping his bottom through. I mean, like, this is how the rich live. This is how this is what they're like. So
I've got
she
kids.
now raised.
It's awful trying to like.
Now she raises her kids.
I want a nanny.
So she raises, and Jacob doesn't pay a minimum wage.
Right. Okay. So how much does Nanny cook? Is it or crook?
Crook. I mean, I can't give you the numbers. I haven't prepped that, but I'm sure.
If anyone knows how much Nanny Crook gets paid, please email us at.
No, it's like I think Barry can probably find.
What's our email address,
It was a news
Barry?
story. It was a news story that day. This is something you can probably Google.
portsidepod@gmail.com. Please.
It'll be in the description.
It will be in the description.
Pod is that awful restaurant, that really posh restaurant.
No, that's the pod. That's the pod. That's just called the pod. If they steal our name, I'm suing those fuckers. Yeah.
It's on the side of the river.
It's nowhere near a port.
Can I complain about that place? Can we talk about that?
You can say what you want, Tom.
So what do you think about that, man?
I've only ever been there for drinks.
Okay, I've never been in.
I did book the place for my ex-girlfriend's 30th birthday.
Was she your ex-girlfriend at the time?
No, then she dumped me. I think it's because she found out I'd booked that place.
Really?
I'm sorry about that.
Damn. That's a really. So it just.
sorry about that.
It looks like the sort of place that I kind of feel like it doesn't really belong. I mean, like.
Well, it's the old office, the old like
I remember,
Bellway office, isn't it? Or something.
That was it, Bellway.
For those bloody awful flats they've put up.
But I mean, that office was there for so long. I thought those flats were a myth. Do you remember the old Labour Exchange? I thought they were never going to happen because it was so long, wasn't it?
Same year, I remember.
Remember the old Labour Exchange? Do you remember all those like shitty buildings there used to go when you were at TJ's?
That was not Terry Howells. What was it? It was all along
Robert
there.
Price.
Robert Price. Yeah, I can remember that.
But before that, there was all those old buildings, and you go after.
I know, and everyone. There was like the first time we saw a decent graph was along those buildings.
Probably along.
I remember.
Maybe
In Newport.
Yeah, there was plenty of other places, but there was some.
Other than like Jane loves fucking Bob.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you will never get better. You will never get better graffiti than "This is Liswery" with 2 L's.
I know, that's still there, isn't it?
This is Liswery with 1 L. Change to Liswery with 2 L. Back and forth.
I still spell it with 2 L's. Did you do that, Barry? You waved your hand then, like you did it.
No, I was waiting for him to mention the fact that they took the graffiti away,
and
then someone replaced it, but only spelled it with 1 L.
Yeah.
Still had the whole message.
But like,
Liswery with 2 L's, but spelled it with 1 L.
1 L. This is Liswery with 1 L's, and then it was like constantly changing that 1 and that 2, and that L was removed and added and removed.
Your mother's got a penis was pretty good as well.
Then better than that. The best piece, that's the number 2 piece of graffiti in the world. This is very with 1 L, 2 L's, constantly changing, constantly being fought back and forth.
The War of the Owls.
Yes, the only better one than that is the one just as you come up, as you go from Angleaf Road, you turn around there under the railway bridge there, that railway bridge.
Megadeth Road.
This says, "This is Pill" with 2 L's.
Imposters. It's not even
real. That's better than Liswery with 2 L's because no one would to change that. Well, I mean, maybe you would. Maybe if you were like kind of, I don't know, like trying to like really big up like the, I don't know, like you're really into like German Pilsner or something. Like, this is Pills with 1 L. Like that would be the only thing.
Your mother's got a penis. I know the GLC did a song about it.
They did a song about it, but it wasn't that. It was your mother's got. It wasn't your mother's got a penis. It was your mother's got. Your mother got penis.
Your mother got penis.
Yeah, it was the grammar.
I bet lots of mothers in Newport have got penis, especially right now.
Oh, shout out
to the mothers in Newport who've got penis. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah.
I can't be trusted.
With what?
With a microphone or mothers or penises, as it happens.
Good thing.
So, Ian Bone. I don't think that was abusing kids, was it?
I mean, I
verbally abusing kids.
It was definitely. So I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? What is where is the acceptability line? Like, I do not think. I think it's fair enough if someone breaks the window of an institution that I don't like. I think, like, well, fair enough.
What if it's an institution that you like?
Yeah, I don't like that. Obviously, I'm partisan, sectarian on these things. If it's something I like, then they can fuck off. But no. I mean, like, for me, like, nobody got hurt. A window got broken. Sounded bad. Sounds dangerous. Sounds bad. But like, really, meh. So like, but where does like talking like that to the children? Where does that rank?
He didn't swear.
No, he didn't swear. I think that matters. I think that does matter.
I think as from a if you're looking at the overall scope of the public,
right?
Yeah, swearing matters.
Yeah,
we don't care. We like the word fuck, cunt, buggery.
There's a reason. Like, so I go to I do like a sauna, right? So I go for a daily sauna.
Oof.
What a wank.
This podcast is going in a totally different direction.
I
know of a really good sauna down Pell.
Yeah, that's where I go.
Yeah.
And like,
I think it's called the Greenhouse, is it? Shout out to the Greenhouse down Pell.
The other saunas are available.
Yeah.
But like, in that setting, I would never I make a lot of small talk. You make small talk in these such situations, and you never. I never swear in that setting.
In a sauna?
No, good grief. Like, there's certain settings you wouldn't swear, would you?
He's an anarchist, and he won't swear in a fucking sauna.
Well, no, what I'm saying is sometimes in life, it matters to be overly polite. You know what I mean? If I'm waiting for a bus...
If you're seeing my nan, sat down with my nan, the living one.
No, I could be talking to anybody at a bus stop, right? And I'll be like... I'll be properly. I'm not gonna swear. I'm not gonna be like uncouth. I'm not gonna be moaning or like. There's certain, like, but I'm not gonna like. You don't like. It matters. I think it matters that Bone didn't swear at the kids.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it overall
I never
it
used
matters.
to think like this, by the way. When I was a young man, I swore at everybody all the
maturing.
time. I used to like kind of think I was so pleased with myself for saying certain words in certain settings. You know what I mean? That's shit.
Yeah.
You know what a
ass.
what a
I
childish
love the word ass. Stop being an ass.
And there's no need. It's just a sign of not being articulate, really.
No, you're right. But
Fuck him though.
So
fuck him if they can't take a joke.
He's basically.
Fuck him all if they can't take a joke. Yeah, go on.
He's basic. So he's been accused of verbally abusing.
So what was interesting was that he personally didn't get any vitriol whatsoever. Interestingly, because what is the point? Like, oh, Ian Bowen, you rude man. It's like, it's brilliant.
How dare you?
No, what they said was this is systemic of the Corbynite hard left. Now, interestingly, one of the few members
They obviously
of the left,
have never read his book.
well, no, and more than that, they haven't seen the more recent campaigns about Corbyn's involvement as leader of the Labour Party, where he's been referred to as worse than Thatcher by Class War.
Oh, they hate the fucking. I remember they hated Tony Benn, didn't they?
They hate Tony Benn.
They had a big thing against Tony
so,
Benn.
I mean, like, because
They did.
and I think that it's
They're
good.
anarchists. They don't agree with political parties. They don't agree with those sides.
But more than that, I mean, the problem they had with Tony Benn was like, I mean, this is not what they publicly have stated about Corbyn, but I think it's part of the analysis of why they're anti-Corbyn, is that these people are just safety valves. They're safety valves for the system, and like what we need is all-out class war. By which they mean escalated social conflict, and like any sort of like, no, it's all right. Like just join your local Labour Party and like move things to the left, and like like drag radical ideas to the centre ground. That'll sort it out. Now, for years, saying that we'd be laughing right now, but actually that's what's happened with the Labour Party recently.
Right.
Is that people have gone in, taken radical ideas, and dragged it to the centre ground of the party. Mm-hmm. They are far, far, far too right wing and liberal for my liking. But it's not my politics. But I want something much more radical than that. But like, I can understand why a lot of people have like gone, well, this is that. It's actually in the same conversation. You know what I mean? Like, whatever you say about Corbyn, like we've mentioned the NATO thing earlier. The anti-NATO demo in Newport.
Was he there?
He was. Yeah, he spoke.
Corbyn was at the anti-NATO.
Yeah.
Did you hear that, Newport?
Well, no, I mean, like, interestingly, like, he spoke outside NatWest Bank on the Saturday afternoon. He was the main speaker.
What, NatWest in town?
In town, yeah, when NATO was in Newport, yeah.
The Smack Superhighway?
Yeah, I went by there. There was a number of speakers. Who else spoke? Bethan Jenkins.
Bethan Jenkins?
And that was probably the
I went
only
to school
politician.
with her.
What, from Neath? Like the.
No. I think Bethan Jenkins works in Poundland.
Okay.
Sorry, so, wrong Bethan Jenkins.
So the point I was making was, so there was a bunch of speakers at that demo, only two of whom were politicians. Interestingly, and what's particularly interesting is that people think of like Paul Flynn, our local MP, as like a particularly sort of left-wing character.
No.
But when we had NATO in Newport, the only Labour elected member who came and supported us was Jeremy Corbyn.
Wow.
Who came on the train by himself. Now, it's incredibly bad form for any MP to go to another MP's constituency and not be greeted by the MP if they're of the same party. If a Labour MP visits Newport East, Newport West, then Paul Flynn should meet them. That's sort of basic, standard.
Well, he should really, yeah. He's Newport West, though, and
he was too busy. That's right, Newport West, sorry. But, so Jeremy Corbyn came to Newport West and spoke there. Mm-hmm. But that day, Paul Flynn was too busy because he was meeting Barack Obama and the other leaders of NATO.
Fair play, though.
Well, I mean, like,
I'm not being funny. If I had a choice between Corbyn and Obama, I would probably go with Obama.
Well, I mean,
no offence to Jeremy Corbyn. I voted for you, man, but
I mean, I didn't vote. Well, actually, I did vote.
You did vote. I remember. Yes, you did.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Take that, anarchism.
Yeah, shocking. Really. I, in my defence, I really thought that.
Something good would happen.
No, I didn't. I never thought anything good would happen. I really thought the Tories could win in Newport East, which is where my vote was. I really thought they could win. There was a lot of Tory party placards around. It was being talked about in the mainstream media. To be honest, by the time the vote came around, it wasn't. But like when I kind of publicly stated that I was going to vote Labour, it was literally at a time when like, so when my mother is an old lefty, not that old. Honest memory, not that old, but she's left, and like for her, the last sort of campaign that she'd been involved with was Foot in the 80s, and she was like, "Oh God, this is the same thing again." We finally got somebody in charge of the Labour Party who's like ethical and sensible and like a human being and not a psychopath, and we're going to go out and campaign for him and really believe that like this is the beginning of something, and he's going to crash and burn, and the Tories are going to be rampant. And the right of the party is going to go and fuck off and do an SDP again, which I mean, like, I think it's like not going to happen now, but for a long time, really felt it was going to happen when Chukwuemeka was going to fuck off and start a second party and all that shit, which is what actually happened in the 80s. And it was like the Tories were going to, like, they were talking about, places the Tories that could win, because what they did was they looked at the fact that the UKIP vote was going Tory, basically.
Yeah.
So they could just look at the last election, say, okay, if everybody who voted UKIP voted Tory. And if the Lib Dems are no longer a factor, then where do they win? And there's all these places. That model included Newport because basically the Labour vote had been hollowed out.
Is that why Boris Johnson came here? Because he did.
Boris Johnson came.
He went to see a friend of ours, didn't
he? He did. I would say that there are many things of which I will feel guilt for the rest of my life. I would say that Dean Bedis holds a level of guilt that I will never hold because he didn't assault Boris Johnson when he had the opportunity. Yeah. I've never met Boris Johnson. I don't have that guilt.
He's an upstanding citizen, though, isn't he, Mr. Bedis? He can't be
he could have been a local hero, couldn't he?
He could have been.
He could have been a legend.
He would have gone down for that, though. So, fair play to Dean.
Fair play. Yeah. I only joke. He told
him to
Shout
fuck
out
off.
Dean Bedis. Well, good, yes. Fair play. Fair play,
he
Dean.
did tell him to fuck
Shout
off.
out to Dean Bedis.
Please feel free to correct us. If you didn't tell him to fuck off.
Yeah. I mean, I've known a great many people who've met a great many, like, mass murderers. I mean, they haven't done anything that bad about it. I mean, Flynn with Barack Obama, rather than meet the
They put all the mass murderers aside, though, because he was the first black president. Surely. You'd be like, I tell you what, forget the mass murder for now. I'm meeting the first ever black president. So
it's not a phrase I would come up with myself. I once went to a meeting for some former Black Panthers during the time of Obama's presidency. Actually, I saw them like 3 times on the same tour. But one of the things they said was, a black face in a high place doesn't mean anything for black people in America. And I would certainly, I'm never going to kind of give my own have some opinion about what race means in those sort of contexts, but certainly there is enough critiques that I can point to by black people in America to say how little that meant, how little it really meant. That I mean, obviously in cultural terms, there's huge. I can't even begin to understand what that means to anybody in America who's African American or
It's more symbolic than actually doing anything. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I mean, but let's talk. Let's forget the symbolism and talk actual material reality. Let's talk about the drone wars. Let's talk about let's talk about the imperialism. Let's talk about the deportations. We're talking record levels of deportation. I mean, thankfully Trump's come along and smashed all the records. But if it wasn't for that, then he'd still be the biggest kid, that dropped the most bombs in the time and
Well, Chomsky said that
deported the most people.
Chomsky, I remember watching an interview with Chomsky where I can't remember. It was on Al Jazeera, and this was before everything got weird.
Before everything got weird.
Yeah.
When did the world end and we start living in the? Because there was definitely
we're in a dystopian, aren't we? Dystopia.
There's certainly a moment.
We're dystopians living in a dystopia.
I mean, I people talk about the after effects of the financial crash. When did the actual the tremors of the financial crash hit pop culture to the point where everything went mental?
2016, surely.
Do you think?
Well, 2000. I'd say early 2015.
Okay.
2016 is where it come to a head.
Right. Okay.
It's like a zit underneath the skin.
So 7 years.
And then when the yellow bit comes out, it's ready to explode.
7 years, man.
Yeah, it was strange.
It takes 7 years for you're a totally new person then. Your cells have all regenerated. So we've had the financial crash, which is
8 years, surely. Yeah.
What?
2007's when the crash started.
Started, okay, but okay, 2008. Yeah, okay.
I was working for a bank at the time.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
don't worry, bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
I got your back.
Do you find it I do find it interesting how like the financial crash is like still when people talk about like what fucking society and shit's like. People talk about the post 9/11 world, but they don't talk about the post financial crash.
I think we're living in the post financial crash.
Completely. That shapes our material reality more than any other thing.
Yeah,
definitely,
no one knows
100%.
because you had the sort of centrist politics, which everyone kind of went, oh, okay, we all agree on this. This is great. Everything we all agree on this, which at the time, even though I wasn't very old, I think I was probably about 13. I kind of went, oh, okay, and we had Dee Ream doing songs for the Labour Party.
I mean, I would say as well. Yeah, I mean, like
can only get better.
Also, there is
buy that on iTunes.
Yeah, as well as that, when we talk about the psychological things, I mean, like you have to look at it in terms of the levels of funding for kind of stuff in society that has now disappeared, that no longer exists, both from like a repressive point of view and like from a positive point of view. There's less money for like adult education, but there's also less money for the police. I mean, like we see like it's redefined what the kind of
we live in a strange time. I don't think anyone can disagree with that.
Sure.
We're living in a strange time. Yeah, so we have massively digressed.
Oh yes, I went to court this week.
So have you won? Did you win?
No, it doesn't work like that, man. It doesn't work like that. Like, come on, this isn't.
Why is nothing fucking simple?
No, nothing's simple. But I mean, actually, this was one of the more simple ones, actually, because we got a ruling that same day, which you never really get. So
define a ruling, Tom.
So let me dial back a bit. So this was a case management hearing to bring a case to the IPT, the Investigative Powers Tribunal.
Right.
So you can file for a case, and the police put into a strikeout to attempt to not have the case heard. So it's not as simple as that. You don't just go like, I don't want it to happen. You just don't comply with the previous court order. So they've been court ordered to do a bunch of disclosure. Now there's a disclosure to a secret court. Mm-hmm. This is not disclosure that we're going to see. This is not disclosure when we talk about like a normal.
So we don't know what was said there.
Well, no.
We
haven't got to that yet. We haven't even got to that.
Okay.
This is the.
Can I have a quick piss? Because you can keep talking.
Okay, let me explain. Like,
and I can listen back.
Okay. So basically, in order to bring this case, you first apply to the court to hold it. The court decides, right, okay, so we're going to have this case, we're going to need disclosure from the two sides. They contact the two sides, we want this from you, we want that from you. You need to give like a skeleton argument, then you need to give the substantive elements of the case, witness statements, so forth, or say that you're going to be providing witness statements, provide names of people. The police did none of this at all, which is standard procedure in any of these cases that people have been bringing against the police for the deployment of undercover officers. This has not been just doing non-compliance for as long as possible. In most courts, if you're the police, you can do that a number of times. Anybody with any experience of being arrested for something and getting bailed and rebailed, they knew they were never going to make it stick. So if all they can ever give you is a caution for something, they'll just bail you the full 3 times before they actually give it to you, because it's like an added punishment. So the police, know how to deal with courts. They just don't comply. They bring things in late. This has been like in the case of this particular case. They've done that twice, and so they went to court and said, well, we don't want to give any more information, so we'll just go forward on the basis of assumed facts, which is a fiction, basically. So that basically what the opposition alleges, whatever. Which is an insane approach, but like just shows how much they don't want to give any real information out. So it was an attempt to stop the secret hearing from happening,
right, by the police.
So they didn't even want the secret hearing to happen.
They're so scared they don't even want the hearing that's pretty much geared to protect them from happening.
Yeah. What was interesting, so everybody thought there was kind of one of these like pointless exercises. I'm somebody who's brought a case in the past against the police for the deployment of undercover officers. I knew that the IPT was an option open to me. Mm-hmm. I chose not to go down that road, partly because of the cost involved. Mm-hmm.
So did you guys have to pay for this secret hearing?
Okay, so there. in order, so that there's not like lawyers are working pro bono, but there are costs. There are ongoing costs to run a case.
What does pro bono mean?
So
other than a really big U2 fan?
Okay, so it basically means that they don't get paid unless you get a payout.
Right,
so that by winning the case,
like a no win, no fee.
No win, no fee.
There's loads of them in town.
There is loads of them in town. It's slightly different. Basically, they're bringing a no win, no fee case you can meet in town. They're looking for certain ways of making large amounts of money. Basically, they're looking for this bad thing's happened to you. We can get that money out of it. Generally, like lawyers who are taking anti-police actions, anti-state actions, are attempting to have an effect on the way in which everyday life is in this country, have a political impact, right or wrong. The amounts of money involved actually are quite small, and any lawyer who's chosen to do that has blatantly made an ideological decision to prioritise that sort of activity rather than any number of other lawyering that they could do. Some of the best lawyers in this country are human rights lawyers.
Yeah.
They are not the best paid lawyers in this country.
No, there's no money in that, is there?
There's no real money in it.
Corporate law. If you're listening, kids, don't go into human rights law.
No, definitely do that.
Go into corporate law.
It's, like, if you're going to do law,
that's where the fucking money is. If you don't have any morals and you just want loads of money,
compared to a mental health nurse or a printer, it's all brilliant money. Okay, so let's
thank God we're neither of those things.
Well, imagine.
My God.
Essentially,
glad I'm a buccaneer.
It's yeah. So that's why
you're a billionaire.
I'm a man of letters.
You are.
Yeah, I am a man of letters. I put letters on pages.
You are a man of letters.
Yeah. Not my letters, but they are letters.
Wow. They're still
letters. So bringing this case to the IPT does cost money. You need to appeal. You need to do a appeal against. You have to go to the court. There's a number of jumps that you make. You get funded in certain sections. Some people who brought these cases have had bits of legal aid. I was unable to get legal aid personally when I brought my case, and I worked on insurance essentially for some parts of my case. I thought I was going to get insurance. I didn't get it. My lawyers thought I was going to get the insurance. I didn't get it, and my lawyers had to advise me not to continue. Technically I shouldn't continue, but they were fairly confident.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I'll be fine, let's do it, because I'm a man of straw. I basically had to say to them, yeah, I'll be okay, because I haven't got any money anyway, so if I lose this bit, then I can't afford to pay you anyway, or anybody else, so it won't matter. And if I get a court order against me, I've got nothing anyway, so don't worry about it. Which, like, when they were basically saying to a lawyer, this thing you're doing for free until you get paid, well, if you don't get paid, if I lose, then I'm not giving you anything anyway. I'm just I'll go bankrupt, mate, don't worry about it. So I did that. That was fun. But bringing an IPC case, there are a couple of hurdles you jump over.
I think for this, at least for this first episode, we're speaking to mainly people that live in Newport. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So how far has this week, secret hearing, got you with regards to getting what the victims of Mark Kennedy?
So this is about Mark Kennedy. Mark Jacobs was the one who was in South Wales. That one who whenever. So it's not.
Was that the one they call Flash?
No, Flash was Mark Kennedy.
Right. Okay. Because you knew him, right?
I knew him. Yeah, I knew him.
Yeah.
I knew Mark Jacobs much better.
Did he get stoned with you? Did you ever get him stoned?
So I would say that Mark Kennedy was a heavy drug user of a number of different drugs.
Coke?
Probably.
Heroin?
Wouldn't know. No, probably not that. No. I mean, like recreational, kind of.
Ecstasy.
Yeah. Cheap biker speed. I remember him on cheap biker speed quite regularly.
Yeah.
I mean,
you probably nicked that from the lockup.
Yeah. Almost certainly.
He's like, quick! I need this to fit in. Not that
so his background. I mean, like, in terms of Mark Kennedy, his background, he had been.
There he is. He's a strange-looking bloke.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he was. He did undercover drug bust stuff, sample buying.
Right. Okay.
That. So his background was drugs.
So he knew
that was
bit,
part of his cover.
It.
His cover was that he was a drug dealer and drug mule essentially.
Right.
Smuggler.
He's too old. Drug mules are normally about 12.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, Tom.
Oh yeah. So to bring the IPT case was like, there was a whole bunch of jumps and hurdles for Kate to go through to get to that point. But what was really interesting was that those judges. So the case management hearing is in open court. The actual event itself won't be. But the talking about how it happened was, which is kind of a bit of a weird thing. It's kind of an unusual thing. And in that open hearing, we got little bits of disclosure which we would never get otherwise. So we actually learned quite a bit. What we also had was the first time in. So we started bringing cases in 2011. In 2011, we found out in 2010. So it's been 7 years of court cases, and this is the first time that the judge has turned to the police and gone, "That's not good enough. We need full disclosure of everything to us." But basically, the judges went, "You can lie to them, but you can't lie to us." Now, obviously, we won't get to see the disclosure of that. But
so wait there. I mean, the judges said.
So basically, the judges said that they had the police were required to give full disclosure. They hadn't done any of it yet, and they said, "Oh, can we just proceed on the basis of assumed facts?"
Okay.
So basically, whatever they say about us, we are terribly sorry, but there we are.
Yeah. This is what they're saying.
That's what they're saying, but we're not saying our side because we can't really say. But
we're not allowed to. We need a secret court before we can do that.
But we're not even arguing. We can't give any of the documents; they're already secret. But
gosh, they've got themselves in a pickle, haven't they?
But so the police said they have so they've admitted they exist now, and now another section of the state will have them in their possession, as well as the inquiry, which has been going on for a little while. So it's a public inquiry into undercover policing, which has been farcical. We've really lost faith in the judge who sits on it, and a great deal. Anybody who's kind of been following that as an event. The fact that this other institution is now earmarking those documents, it sounds so pathetic. It sounds so minor, but like when you're actually, if you ever want to hold the state to account for doing some horrific, horrible crime, it's an incredibly small step process to bring any kind of anything to bear against them, and you start celebrating times when secret documents that you will never see are released to a secret court that you can never attend. but they officially exist now.
Yeah, that's it.
And once they
has
officially
to be acknowledged
exist,
by the law,
right? Then they can't be destroyed without somebody being responsible for that destruction. And they can still be destroyed, and that still happens.
But the documentation,
but it'll be somebody's fault.
They need to say that secret document that no one knows about has actually been destroyed.
So you created a paper trail, which means that hopefully at some point. Remember when we first got when the inquiry was first called, which is a mad sequence of events now because the person who called it was Theresa May.
When did all this start then, Tom?
The inquiry was called 2015.
No, but when did all this?
So we discovered that we had confirmation.
When did you from when you found out that, say, we'll use Mark Kennedy because he's up on the screen at the moment.
Mark Kennedy was the first person to be uncovered publicly. And that was 2010. That was November 2010. So 10 years ago.
Fucking hell.
8 years ago. Well, about 10 years ago. 8 years ago.
What do you expect from the police? What do you want from them? Just to acknowledge that this was bad?
Okay,
or?
So when it comes to outcomes, as a movement, the people who have been campaigning around these issues have come up with a 3-point demands. We want releasing of the files. We want to individuals. We want the cover names, and we want the inquiry to be extended to all the areas where they operated. Because at the moment, the inquiry just covers England and Wales. It doesn't cover Scotland. Doesn't cover Ireland. Doesn't cover the rest of Europe. Which
Ireland's going to be a fucking minefield for this, isn't it?
It is. I would say that. Remember, we're talking about the SDS and the MPORU. We're not talking about MI5. We're not talking about other units of special branch which were working in Northern Ireland. We are not talking about the Troubles and the Civil War. Essentially, you're not allowed to call it Civil War. We're not talking about the conflict.
The Troubles.
Yeah, we're not talking about that. We're talking about public order. We're talking about in 1968 when the unit was formed, it was after the anti-Vietnam War protest in outside the American embassy.
Right.
Which the crowd nearly penetrated the outer walls of the American embassy, and allegedly they had done that. There were American agents with automatic weapons who would have opened fire at the crowd. So it nearly happened. It didn't. They didn't quite get that far, but the police completely lost control. The mob, in inverted commas, won the day. And there was an extraordinary general meeting of all the senior brass of British policing at the time, and the Home Secretary, and all these people. And there was like this kind of like, this is unacceptable.
We can't let this happen here.
Listen, this is never
not in
again.
Britain, not in Old Blighty, not
never
without
again.
blue passports.
Right. So, this is the point where I should start naming names of senior officers, Conrad something and somebody else something, and I'm terrible with names and I can't remember them right now. But essentially, a senior officer came forward and said, "Give me £1 million a year and 10 good men, we will never have a public order situation in Britain again." No, obviously that's going to be true, but from that moment on, the Metropolitan Police brag that no public demonstration of more than 3 people has gone ahead without either a covert or an overt surveillance.
So that's official knowledge now, is it?
Well, that's something they've bragged about in the past. If you actually think about it, what that means is that any public demo has a copper across the road.
Because I thought for demos you've got to let the police know.
No. Why would you have to do that?
Because I always thought that was like, I don't know where I got this from.
A procession on the public highway requires foreknowledge to the traffic authority, which is the police.
Okay.
So that's because you're going to in some way affect the traffic in some way. So theoretically, supposedly, historically, it was a matter of notification rather than approval.
Okay.
It's become a process of approval.
We're doing this.
Right.
But now it's become.
But that's because.
Can we do this?
Yeah. So there's that's a negotiated position, obviously. So there's a lot of things about that. But essentially, the Special Demonstration Squad was set up in '68 as a means of controlling public order situations.
Right.
As and when they arise. So it was about what kind of numbers are we getting for that big demo down in London on Saturday. Who's involved with that group that's breaking into army bases and scrawling graffiti on the walls. I mean, anything like that was like, right, okay, and that was the early 70s. It was very much aimed.
That kind of makes sense, I suppose. People breaking into army bases.
Okay, so there's bits and pieces of that, but it goes from everything from that kind of activity through to standing outside a shop with a placard. It's that movement, right? Which is not the same movement.
So they use the one law to cover such a broad spectrum.
I mean, it's not a broad spectrum. These are the same territory. Non-violent direct action, going on demo with a mask on your face, and
How do these fucking anonymous fuckers get away with it? The ones with the mask.
What do they get away with?
V for Vendetta.
What exactly
do the police know about it? That they're standing around?
They're standing around. There's police of those.
Their placards. Watch them.
Yeah, well, I mean,
watch those police.
So I mean, it's quite interesting when we look at groups who had, heavy police infiltration and those who had light infiltration. Those who didn't appear to have any infiltration at all. We can maybe see a certain sort of hierarchy of of like hardcore political activity, but let's not get into any of those kind of acceptable, unacceptable, who was like right on enough or not to have, like, the police took an interest in any kind of political activity that led to any kind of public order situation. And the public order situation does not necessarily have to be a disorder situation. It's literally that people are not behaving like workers, shoppers,
So who voted on
revelers. Okay, so the jurisdiction for the deployment of those officers was very sketchy from day one.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years, some bits of legislation have come in which have added to their ability to justify their behaviour.
Mm-hmm. Like stop and search?
Well, I mean, that's an overt policing tactic. But when we talk about covert policing tactics, there have been a number of... The main piece of legislation is the Regulatory Investigative Powers Act, RIPA, which has been updated a number of times. I think 2013 is the most current act. maybe it's 15 now. But, I mean, it's updated every couple of years. It was overwritten significantly. It was like rewritten in 2003. It was it got dubbed the UK Patriot Act at the time it was first brought in. So one of the telling things about it, one of the things which the Labour Party conference recently down Abbott announced that Labour Party policy would be to change this. As it currently stands, it takes a fairly minor, low-ranking police officer to approve a covert human intelligence source, because technically a undercover officer, infiltration of somebody's life for 5 years, is the same oversight as an informer giving you previous information and you handing them some money for it. So those the legislative framework that was based around it was a very open piece of legislation. It allowed any middle-ranking cop to approve. It means technically you wouldn't need much oversight for a deployment undercover officer. What Labour are proposing is that a High Court judge would have to sign it off.
Right. Okay.
Which, have you ever seen The Wire?
I have. I love The Wire.
Okay, so
it's brilliant. Omar coming.
Yeah, so in The Wire, Omar. So they need a High Court judge to sign off The Wire. So it would be a similar thing.
I got you.
For a deployment undercover
but they
officer.
didn't have to do that before.
So in the UK, if The Wire had been set in the UK and it was an undercover officer rather than a Wire, you'd have been talking about Bunk signing off the undercover deployment.
So just the supervising.
Just like a middle-ranking cop could have done that.
That's a bit naughty.
So I mean, like, what's interesting about the Labour legislation, it's the High Court judge that has to decide it, was announced by some, so like say Navarra media people, as some sort of victory that the activists should celebrate. Campaigners should celebrate. You fought for years, bringing light to this issue. Isn't it brilliant that the Labour Party is saying that we should change that? So, see, to me, with my politics, that's bigger cages, longer chains. Fuck off. That does nothing to solve the heart of the problem of the issue. It further professionalises it, arguably. It requires a great level of bureaucracy, essentially, but it does nothing to undermine the actual structural problem with what is at the heart of the way in which these officers operated, which we talk about institutional racism with the police force. This is the biggest example of institutional sexism, because it was, so much of it was the legends. The basis of the deployment was around sexual relationships. These officers were all known as somebody's boyfriend. That's how they made themselves safe. The sexual relationships weren't just like the worst thing they did, and that's why everybody knows about it. It's the thing they did in order to be undercover and people. That was their way in, was through the relationships. That it's a way in which the state use members of the public as disposable items where required.
Can I play devil's advocate?
Sure. Actually, what? So you, a white man, Matthew Spencer, are going to, on an issue which doesn't affect you in any way, you are going to feel the need to take the most offensive and obnoxious position possible in order to argue it out. That's very brave of you. That's really brave of you. I admire your courage and your confidence. I think it's really important for people like yourself to do things like that, because I think when it shakes things up, I need to have a wee.
Go on, have a wee.
But I tell you what, you do that. You crack on, and I'll be back now.
I will. He's a good bloke. I love Tom. He's pretty funny, and he's right as well. He knows his shit. He is.
I want to give the devil's advocate.
You want to hear the devil's advocate? You know what I'm going to talk about, don't you? Surely.
Go on, just crack on.
I'll give you a clue.
No, don't give me a...
It rhymes with a farm. A farm. If a man was saying it with a lisp, he would say a farm. A farm. Oh no, he wouldn't, would he? No. It'd be a speech impediment. It wouldn't be a farm. Someone that couldn't say sl. So instead of s, they would say th. So instead of s, they would say the th sound.
I think the devil needs another act.
Yeah. Nah, the devil's alright with this one. There he is. You didn't even flush the chain.
No, I didn't, because I thought the sound would be too much.
Ah, that's alright. That's fine. We like it. Oh my god. Bloody anarchist.
It's all right.
Don't
Calm
protested in my
What are you going to
house.
say then? Go on, get over it. Get out your mouth.
Right, what I was going to say is, right, okay, so the laws, that people can infiltrate these groups, blah, 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 yada, 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 with the lease sign off and whatever, okay? With regards to, say, Islamic fundamentalists.
Right, okay.
Right?
I mean, I would say before we get onto that.
So, okay, so we know these guys.
The MPORU and the National Public Order Intelligence Unit and the Special Demonstration Squad were not the kind of officers who are going to be infiltrating terrorist cells.
But would those laws free up, say, an Asian man that could go in into a mosque and find out if someone was going to go in?
It's a completely different area of policing. It's going to be a different area of policing. It's going to be a different area of legislation. Okay. Interestingly, MI5, they can commit sexual assault. They can rape somebody. They can murder somebody. They can so that there are rules on torture. But they can do certain cruel and unusual behaviours to people without having broken any laws legally in Britain. There was a.
Can we Google that, please?
Yeah, that came out this week. About MI5 murder and sex. If you look at murder and sexual assault, that's the main sort of aspects of it.
MI5 murder and sexual assault.
Yeah, MI5.
That's like the best song title ever.
That was the lead case, the MI6 case, but there's a whole bunch. The legislation about it is a different subject. When we talk about, interestingly, when we talk about that, the same units I'm talking about, so I mentioned Bob Lambert earlier. He was an officer in the early 80s who was deployed in animal rights groups. He had a child with somebody. And he also went on to be the handler for.
Is he the only one that had a child?
No, not at all. Far from it. There's a whole bunch of them.
There's little undercover.
There's a number of others.
Police kids. That's mad.
There's a bunch of them. The majority of people who are affected by that have an anonymity.
Right.
So
the children, and the partners,
and the partners. Right. So the women in question and their children, they have anonymity. Other ones have chosen not to have it. So there are certain officers we know a lot. We can talk about a lot more openly, even though the information's out there when it comes to their personal lives.
Here we are: murder, torture, sexual assault.
Yeah.
MI5 and informants authorised to commit crimes in UK court hears. Right. Who's the source, Barry? Russia Today.
I would say this was also in the Times and the Telegraph. That's very, like, Barry has chosen this one as his news source. There are plenty of other.
It's because Barry.
Okay,
look, Tom, come on. He's wearing a fucking tinfoil balaclava.
Yeah.
You know he's.
So I mean, in terms of what the state is able to do, like. I mean, personally, for me, I don't think the state should be doing any of these things. I don't think we should have a state. I think the way in which we organise human relations should be done very differently across the board. My ideal situation would be very different again. But if we're talking about police units need to be able to do these things because otherwise, blah. It's we have in the UK so many layers of intelligence agencies. I don't think their behaviour is acceptable either, personally, actually. But when we're talking about what special branch we're doing, fuck off. No, they don't fucking there's no. But if there is no fucking
if you've got a law,
for any of it.
So does this basically state that MI5 / MI6 whatever? Does that basically say that they're immune to? They can do whatever the fuck they want as long as it means they catch the bad guys?
I mean, I wouldn't say that last clause in what you said was an issue in any way.
Okay.
There's no suggestion of that. They just, in order to read up on it. But essentially, we live in a situation where the British state has, we mentioned Northern Ireland earlier. When we're saying about the demands of campaigners. You asked me earlier.
Kieran's Irish.
Right. So you asked me earlier about the.
You might offend him.
Yeah.
Don't fucking blow us up. I know you're ginger. Sorry.
Are you?
You have to push the up.
Are you really?
No, I'm not. You have to push the volume up button. Volume up. Can you see it? All right. No. Get a lighter on it. No, don't burn the telly. There you go. That's fine. Just leave it.
For the benefit of the audience,
Barry, basically my TV, which I won in a raffle.
There's a TV on in this room. I don't know why there's a TV on in this room.
It's because we're fact checking, so we can all read it.
I'm not reading it.
No, doesn't matter.
I can't get rid of that.
It'll go on its own. It will, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Sorry.
Yeah, when I talk about what the there were those things, the extending of the inquiry to the rest of the UK, to the rest of the world where those spy cops operated. So those are the three demands of campaigners. What I want is an end to the police.
In general?
Yeah, fuck them. I want everybody held responsible. I want the return of capital punishment for police officers. I think that'd be all right. I'm up for that.
Capital punishment for police officers.
Yeah, just police officers.
What about
for anything?
proles?
What
about proles? What about us?
No. Just for cops.
Just for that.
Just for cops. Yeah. I maybe we could extend to politicians, but I'm happy if we don't. Because I think
what about priests?
So I think the legislation would be easier to get through to get through Parliament if it didn't include politicians. I think if we included politicians on that legislation, it would But if you could bring it back just for cops, I reckon there would be a time where you could probably push that through. So I think we should bring back a capital punishment for cops because we've had so many sexual abusers of cops, so many rapists, paedophiles, gangsters, murderers. I think the police have got a real problem in this country. There's a huge problem with
there's
the
good
police
cops,
operate.
so Tom, surely there's good police out there. Surely there's got to be.
Don't call me Shirley.
Sorry, Shirley. But
hey man, if you want to talk about that, you go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. No, I'm just saying.
Just saying. You've got the floor, man. Tell me about them. Tell me. Give me some examples of Go on.
No, I'm just saying. I'm sure that a lot of police officers.
How sure are you? Go on, give me an example.
A lot of police officers would go into that job.
You're talking hypotheticals.
To be. I am speaking hypothetically.
Come on. I've sat here and I've talked to you about things that happened this week. I've talked about things that happened this week. I've given you a bunch of examples this week.
No.
So I want you to give me some good examples.
But we're talking about a different type of cop, aren't we? We're talking about these guys that have gone in at this level. I'm not blaming the individual. I'm blaming. I am saying. The system is blatantly fucking flawed.
I'm not talking about individuals either. I'm talking about a system. I'm talking about institutions. I'm talking about the very office. I'm talking about the way things are structured.
Yeah,
I don't
agree.
think. So we're not on about individual officers. That's the reason why. So this case this week. This was not suing that individual officer. This was bringing a case against the
whole ideal behind it.
No, the Metropolitan Police Service.
Yeah, and I think that's right.
And that's how we have brought all the cases. It's never been individualised. It's not been personalised.
That job of the police is gone.
There could be a good person or there could be a bad person. That's not really relevant. That doesn't really matter. What matters is the way the institution is set up.
Yeah.
These are systemic problems. This isn't about personality. It's not about somebody. Oh well, he meant well. He wanted to help the local community. He became a cop. It's not about that. That sort of shit doesn't matter.
No, you're right. I think you're right there. This is a serious issue. I can understand if you've got the police infiltrating far right groups.
Okay, so interestingly, that's an interesting point because those were the same cops.
Right. Okay.
So these were the same units who were infiltrating your National Fronts and your BMPs.
And did they do it successfully?
Interestingly, they didn't add so many cops to it. It was quite an unusual thing. The NPORU was only outside of London because the SDS was basically a Met Police unit. So the Met Police had 10 officers undercover at any given moment, and usually doing 5-year deployments. There would be overlaps, but at any given point there'd be more than 10. But there was 10 on a 5-year deployment. That was the main sort of and they were maybe phasing people out, bringing people in. But there were 10 main officers at any given time. So, and the SDS the NPORU was doing a similar thing for the rest of the UK. At any given point, there might be 1 or 2 at most ever, but sometimes none in far right groups. So the majority of these were like environmental direct action, anti-fascism always got a big number. Anarchist groups, socialist groups, environmentalists, anything really, trade union movement,
black groups,
family justice campaigns, black groups. In terms of in the UK, we have had a distinct lack of permanent radical institutions. The ones that have continued to exist have been very, very liberal, which is a bit of a carbuncle in terms of It's twice I've used the word carbuncle.
It's great. It's a lovely word.
You named an American fight commentator numerous times. I only said the word carbuncle twice. Anyway,
say it 4 times. You're going to have a carbuncle.
I'm going to have a carbuncle.
Yeah. Make sure you take a picture of that.
These long-term sort of radical institutions. I mean, like lots of other European countries, they kind of manifest themselves within like charities and things. I mean, obviously you've got the Charity Commission in the UK, which means that charities can't be political. But you've also seen a systemic disruption and undermining of radical political groups in the UK since the late 60s. And like a generation before that, you had the buying off of all the radical groups with the creation of the welfare state.
They were the Germans, weren't they?
Well, no, I mean, like you look at things like the hands-off Russia movement in the 30s, and you look at like the huge mass movements, or radical movements then.
Right. Okay.
And then you had the war settlement.
Do you think
the Communist Party
that the British government looked at those countries and looked at these guys and thought, right, fuck it, we're gonna set our own shit up just in case it happens here?
No, I mean, I think there was very much no. I mean, I think like I think more than any other state, the British state has been most effective at finding ways of deconstructing threats to the state from radical political movements. I think that partly that's because in like the 1830s, 1840s, you know, we came close in this country to all-out revolution a couple of times, and a couple of like moments happened. Other countries went much further. I think the British state learned from those. Here we are sat in Newport, man. 1839 was the last time that you were able to have the concept of a national working class conspiracy. That concept could exist. That you could have an institution the size of the House of Commons happening in secret, being run by it wasn't just working class people. There was a lot. I mean, you look at the Chartist leaders. A lot.
The money's got to come from somewhere.
A lot of petty bourgeois people. But generally, they were members of the International Working Men's Associations. You know, they were working rich, if you like. They weren't rich. They were professionals. They ran drapiers. They ran. There was the shop owners. You know, they were. In
it's
some
like
way,
Fight Club. We drive your buses. We wait your tables.
Well, yeah. I mean, like a lot of them. Yeah. I mean, there was definitely, but you could. But what essentially was a working class conspiracy could exist. Telegram comes in. You know, the tentacles of the state come that ever a little bit further, that ever more connected. The wealth of the state allows for the ability for the state to know about everything. A working class conspiracy is no longer possible. You know, and the British state does that first, and I think that's a huge element of the way in which the British state has developed in that way.
So, what the victory
the victory day was
that we're hoping here, with regards to spy cops.
Okay, so this Wednesday, it will go ahead to the IPT.
This is my point is this is a little win.
It's a tiny little win. It's a tiny little win. Yeah. Kate has won the right for her case to be heard at a secret court in secret with no proper disclosure. But what's interesting, as part of the little interesting tidbit, is in order to not do the disclosure, the police released a whole insane stack of documents, of 10,000 documents, to the IPT, and said, "Look, we have to redact all this. We have to redact all this in order to defend ourselves." Which the IPT was like this, the defence lawyer, the claimant's lawyer said, "This is an Aunt Sally that's been constructed just to be knocked down. You don't need these 10,000 documents. It's ridiculous. In a fraction of that, they just need to have some of it." But there was this huge cache of documents, and in order to sort of slap them down, the IPT themselves took 200 pages, redacted them, very heavily redacted them, admittedly, very heavily redacted them. You know, I don't know if you've seen redacted documents from a government source, but we're just talking about line after line of black lines, and then you get this occasional sort of word here and there, the occasional sentence, little pieces that make very little sense out of context. But they did 200 pages of that, which they released to Kate as like an example of like, well, they're saying it's a problem because they can't, but look, this is what we're dealing with. And it was a bit of a slapdown, a very unusual.
They're slapping you with bureaucracy, aren't they?
Yeah. But no, but in that sense, we're seeing a little bit of a tat between two sections of the state.
They know they've got to move now, don't they?
So,
which is a good sign, because it means that they know. Like I said earlier, they're frightened.
Right. Well, because I think once we actually, because one of the things they've had to admit is that the Mark Kennedy's handlers and his line managers.
I want to know what handlers do. It sounds like he's a chimp.
So basically, it's like a couple of doors down. They're always going to be a couple of doors
handlers.
down. Yeah,
so they're going to be
nearby,
close.
Nearby in every situation. Yeah,
that's dark. So Mark was would you call Mark your friend?
Mark Kennedy.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess there's that thing of like
think back to yourself then.
Friends and comrades. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's something which we've always been. Because of the relative size of the movement and so forth, we've been bad at sort of maintaining friends and comrades. So I think he was a comrade, certainly.
What was the movement?
Well, I mean, so there was a number of national networks that I was involved in as a member of South of Gwent Anarchists, which is part of South Wales Anarchists.
Okay.
And we were part of like various national networks. No Borders Network was one of the big ones. Camp for Climate Action was another big one. Other things like Rising Tide, Earth First. Various other sort of like Dissent, which was against the G8. There were various coalitions of local groups around the country working on various issues or the events that were happening, like counter protests, counter summits. You know, I mean, if you think back to the 2000s, one of the big things that was like a big thing in radical politics was going to large summits like G8 summits, WTO summits, IMF summits, EU summits, holding a counter event where we would invite the likes of Chomsky, Naomi Klein, and all those kind of writers and thinkers, and activists and various sort of radical politician types. Your John McDonald's and your Jeremy Corbyns and your Leanne Woods and your all those people as well.
Leanne Wood, I definitely would.
So she's no longer leader of Plaid. That's going to be interesting, isn't it? Do you think?
Now I can masturbate to her publicly.
So openly gay leader of a political party.
What, Leanne Wood's gay?
No. Adam Price. So I would say Leanne Wood is a friend of mine, she's very strong.
I was only joking, by the way.
Yeah. And I hope now, actually, I would say when she became leader, she disappeared from the social scene of which I'm a part because she was so busy, and I hope she will return because that social scene includes her partner, who we never see them together because
that's
they're all so
Tom
busy.
Saying, Leanne, I wish you'd swipe right.
Yeah. Anyway, but there was certainly we host these alternative summits and there'd be protests, and that was a big part of what the movement was. And it was something which it was a crossover of all those things where I met all these undercover officers, Mark Kennedy being one of them. But Mark Jacobs was the officer who was blatantly assigned.
Did you know him as well?
Yeah. So he was basically assigned to South Wales Anarchists, and he.
Do you think it's a thing about people called Mark?
Those were both Marks. Yeah, there were lots of others with lots of other names.
Watch out for anyone called Mark.
There was like Lynn Watson was the one at the same time as well. She was the only woman. There was a couple of female officers.
Women do it as well.
Yeah, a couple. Yeah.
Any black undercover cops?
Interestingly, there was allegedly one who, according to Peter Francis, who is an undercover police officer who went whistleblower, who was the only real reason we know what this unit is and what we know about it. He went whistleblower before Mark Kennedy was outed, but so it was when Mark Kennedy was outed we really kind of got a sense of what actually was going on. But he had spoken to a Guardian journalist before that, and he talked about the time when there was a black undercover officer who was assigned to infiltrate family justice campaigns, and they used to have these regular debriefs. They'd all get together in a safe house and debrief about what their group had been up to and what was so on, and then interact with each other. And he said it was quite hard to leave character during those periods, and they'd actually end up being those times would be a time where you would be very much in character even though you weren't with any of your targets, and that actually people would play up to their subcultural traits of which they'd been assigned to. So you would get arguments between the far right people and the others, that would be part of the tension.
It's like the commode story from Reservoir Dogs.
What's the commode story?
I'm not going to say the commode story, but the point is,
the toilet story.
He says you need to sound like you're the commode story. He says you need to know that you need to sound like a drug dealer. You need to have a story. So I suppose.
Okay, right. Yeah, I guess that. Anyway, so they'd be in that setting, and the one black officer, undercover officer, said that I don't think we're being this group I'm infiltrating. They're doing no public order situations. They've been appealing for calm every time there's been a protest about their son's death. I kind of feel like I'm not in the right place. He was reassigned, and there was jokes about, and that's why we don't have any of them. So I mean, institutional racism within the Metropolitan Police. Who knew? Who knew?
See, racism even exists in the guise of secret police organisations. That's ridiculous. What about gay guys? Because white people can do that.
I don't know of any undercover officers who
infiltrating the gay movement.
I mean, they may well have existed. Yeah.
Well, Tom, I think you do a brilliant job.
Thank you.
And as a human being, I love you very, very much.
Cheers, man. Yeah. You're a good lad.
You are. Yeah. Shake my hands.
That's for the benefit of the tape. The tape we're having a coach.
I'll give you. Yeah, we are coaching. We are. Our penises are touching. Well, one thing I will say.
Yeah.
If you got 30 seconds now, right, to say whatever you want to say.
My SoundCloud is I haven't got one.
Come on, Tom.
Follow me on Twitter at Tom B Fowler. I can't think of anything else.
That sounds great. Well, don't forget to. What did you say, Barry?
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Can't put any sort of content, inverted commas content, because we all speak.
If you like.
Everybody speaks Stoke Scruff now. You have to say things like content, and if you like and subscribe the content.
Hashtag Spy Cops. We have been the Portside Podcast, and you have been Tom Fowler. Give us a safe, Tom.
Safe as fuck.
Good night. Thank you very much.
There we go. Marvellous.
There you go. Are you going to stop it or what? Fucking hell.
That was alright, wasn't it?
That was great. That was brilliant.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
good.
I really
Marvellous.
enjoyed speaking to you.
Excellent.